So, the Dallas Cowboys cut Dez Bryant yesterday. And understandably so, a lot of people in Cowboys Nation are feeling all kinds of ways about it. I would say the majority of people I've heard are upset. They're angry. Some have flat out sworn off the Cowboys, which I can understand where the anger comes from, but it hurts. It does. Like, it sucks. I get it. I actually, before last season started, kind of made a prediction based on a trend I was seeing that Dez would be gone this offseason. And even I kind of was backpedaling as the days came up. If you guys watched this past Wednesday's podcast, you saw it yourself. I was not really able... When I try to look at something, I always try and take a very logical, analytical approach. And, well, I try not to let emotion really factor into my analysis, especially when sports are considered. So for me, I looked at what I had noticed, and that was that in Dez's 5-year, $70 million contract, which he signed in summer of 2015, June or July 2015, and by the way, he earned every dollar of that contract. The dude was a monster his first 4 or 5 seasons in the league. And it just unfortunately kind of worked out where 2015, his first year of the new deal, he had a few injuries stack up, only played 9 games. In 2016, he missed 3 more games with essentially a broken leg, although it was like a minor fracture. And, we had the switch then in 2016 from Romo to Dak, and that totally changed the dynamic of the passing game, and the chemistry that Dez had built up with Romo over a 5, almost 6-year window suddenly was all moot. It was gone. And then 2017 wasn't a good year for Dez. And going into the season, we really thought he and Dak were like, okay, they've had a whole year together now. Whole year and a whole off season. This is going to be the year. That's all we heard throughout training camp. This is going to be a monster connection. And it was anything but, man. It was not good. And yes, some of that blame, a fair bit of that blame, falls to Dak. Absolutely. Dak needs to improve. Dak is not now, nor will he ever be Tony Romo. But he is still a capable quarterback. He's efficient. You can win with Dak. You can win with Dak. You guys may notice this is a way more unfiltered video than I normally do. Normally I have a lot of cuts, edit cuts, and I didn't want to do that for this video because I wanted to be authentic in this case. Well, not that I'm ever trying to be inauthentic, but with this topic especially, I wanted to just literally hit record and start to take down my thoughts. I'm probably not even going to make a single edit to this video. Dez earned his contract, but man, for a number of factors, it didn't work out after he signed the deal. His injuries, all specifically lower body injuries, the offensive scheme shift. 2014 was really the start of the shift, but he still balled out. That's because he had Tony Romo, and Tony Romo kept defenses much more honest than Dak is able to currently. Tony was an assassin out there. One of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history. I don't care what anyone says. And if a defense really started cheating up on the line to stack it against DeMarco, Tony would pick them apart over the top with Dez. Or T. Will or anyone. I mean, that's what Dallas did in 2014. And unfortunately, that has not yet been the case yet with Dak. And so Dez's efficiency has been kind of scaled back. But 3 years into that 5-year deal, man, he was getting paid second highest paid receiver in the league behind, I think, only Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. And over the course of those 3 years, he made essentially an average of $300,000 a catch. And he had a 49.7% completion percentage on passes thrown to him in that window, which was the worst in the league in that 3-year stretch, with a minimum of 200 targets. And Dallas's identity just isn't going to play nice anymore with Dez's style of play. It's just not. And the sideline stuff, the distraction stuff, it's still going to be there. And it wasn't worth it anymore. Now, Dallas, going into that meeting with Jerry, all the talk from Dallas was that they were going to insist he take a pay cut. And whether they just didn't believe he would ever do that, and he called their bluff in a way, saying he was willing to take the pay cut, and they're like, oh, we didn't actually want to give it. Whether that was the case, or whether it was just that they changed their mind, I don't know. Whatever the case may be, they moved on, and it sucks. I liked Dez a lot, man. I did. I'm literally repping his jersey right now. And it sucks. I hate that 2014 couldn't have been the year. Not just for Romo, not just for DeMarco, but Dez himself and really the organization as a whole. That was the closing of a championship window. And now I would say we're kind of in a weird period where they could do it, but it's not like a championship window. Now, if it were to happen, it would feel more to me like they're catching fire at the right time, or catching lightning in a bottle and just making it happen. You know, look to the 2011 Dallas Mavericks for that. They weren't the best team that year. They just caught lightning in a bottle at the right time, and they just became that damn team. That team that wasn't going to be denied. And 2014 had the look of that. It just didn't work out because of the Dez catch, or stolen catch, essentially, in Green Bay. But oh man, I didn't go live yesterday for a video, or even that evening after the news came down about Dez being released. And in part of that, it's because I kind of wanted to gather my thoughts on it. I did write an article, but that's honestly easier for me sometimes. If you're interested, the article is on the DallasProspect.com. Let me check that out. So the article, if you're interested, is on the DallasProspect.com, and it's kind of just like an impartial look, an examination of Dez's legacy in Dallas. And man, there's no doubt he's deserving of one day having his jersey up in the rafters at AT&T Stadium. He will be in the Ring of Honor. It might take some time for him to kind of patch things up with the Cowboys again, but 88 belongs there, man. He's the franchise's all-time leader in reception touchdowns with 73. Witten could conceivably pass him now, but that honestly, even with Witten being almost Captain Cowboy of the modern era, that still would kind of leave a bitter taste in my mouth for Dez. But I don't know, man. Dez could very well go somewhere else next season and, you know, look closer to 2014 Dez. I know some people feel that he's as good now as he ever was. I don't share that opinion, but I still think he has a lot left in the tank. Sorry about that. I still think he has a lot left in the tank, and especially if he goes within the division, man, he could make Dallas for at least a year, maybe even 2, eat their words, you know, eat their decision as far as saying he wasn't worth keeping. Personally, I hope he goes the DeMarcus Ware route. I hope he goes somewhere to a contender. Don't settle for like Washington or the Giants, dude. Like, if you're gonna go, I know you want to get us back, but I want you to win a title more than I want you to show us up. I don't even care. You could, if you go within the division, you could light us up for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I'd say, all right, well, you got yours back. There you go. Now what? You're stuck. You're not going to win a title. Because both those teams are too far gone, and Philadelphia has already said they're not interested. Really, Philadelphia just doesn't have the ability to do it. They'd have to make too many moves, and they don't feel at this stage of his career he's probably worth making those moves to free up, especially when they already have a team built to defend their title. So, all the same, man, it sucks. It does. I keep saying that. I'm sure I'm going to accidentally say it again in this video. But I understand the thinking Dallas had in making the decision. That doesn't mean I agree with it necessarily. That doesn't mean that it was the right decision. I'm just saying I see what they thought. And to me, the biggest clue, as I said earlier, I saw a trend I felt last offseason that Dallas was moving towards moving on from Dez. And to me, that trend was that they never restructured him. They restructure everybody in Dallas. This year, they've been a little better. They've only restructured a couple deals. I think it was Witten, who has no guaranteed money, so that's not the end of the world, and Travis Frederick, and he's young enough and dominant enough that it's not end of the world to move some of his guaranteed money to the back end of his deal, because presumably he'll get maybe even one more deal in Dallas. But you just got to see. So they never restructured Dez on that 5-year, $70 million deal. Notable guys they did restructure: Witten, Romo, Frederick, Crawford, Lawrence, I think, Zach Martin, Sean Lee, Hitchens. The point is, they restructured a lot of guys on the team. And when you do that, you're effectively kicking the can down the road. You're making the salary cap for them this year, the salary hit for them this year, less by pushing more of the guaranteed money. You basically are giving them the difference in a signing bonus, which doesn't count against the cap, but it allows you to kick the can down the road as far as the guaranteed money, so that you can fill out a better roster now. It's short-term thinking. It's like putting things on a credit card. I hate when Dallas does it. I'm glad that they look like they're starting to drift away from that pattern. They only did it a couple times this year. In both cases, I think it was a somewhat practical option. But I don't know, man. It just, them never restructuring Dez, and the fact that he's still 8 years in Dallas, never had a C on his chest. That said something to me. I think the locker room was probably more divided on Dez than we know. There are absolutely guys who would run through a brick wall for Dez, Cole Beasley being one. A lot of guys on the defense, I think DeMarcus Lawrence, when he was here, Orlando Scandrick, I would say. You know, defensive guys, they typically play with an attitude and with some chip on their shoulder. And you don't see that as much from the offense. But when you do get an offensive guy with that mentality, you see the defensive guys kind of rally around him. Remember T.O. in Philadelphia, how he tore that locker room apart? The entire defense was in T.O.'s corner. The entire offense, obviously save T.O., was in Donovan McNabb's corner. That's basically what we got in Dallas. Not, well, let me walk that back before people start typing in the comments. That's essentially the vibe I got from Dallas, is that most of the guys in Dez's corner were defense or the other receivers. I don't think you necessarily had the offense, and certainly not the coaching staff, in his corner. I think Linehan and Garrett were upset with Dez, and I think they were done. Dez kind of was critical of him last year, and it's one thing if a guy is being difficult, but he's producing. When he's not producing, as I mentioned earlier, whether there are a load of factors. Nothing is black and white. There are a number of reasons Dez wasn't producing anymore. The quarterback, the offensive philosophy and scheme, the coaching staff. Yes, that includes Derek Dooley, the wide receiver coach at the time. Dez's own injuries and health. Dez had a lot of drops last year, and for some reason, people don't like talking about those. They only want to show highlights of Dak missing a pass or placing the ball wrong. They don't, for some reason, want to show me the highlights where the ball hits Dez in the face mask and he's wide open. Again, there's a little bit of truth to everything. And I think it was just a culmination of just bad circumstances. And I think it just kind of... It just left it where nowhere else to go. So I wish the best for Dez. It sucks that it came to this. I really was hopeful that they could figure out something, that they could find some kind of middle ground. I was hoping that Dez's want to stay in Dallas, and I believe he wanted it. Dez says he would have taken the pay cut that wasn't offered. I was hoping Dallas, that they were going to push the pay cut. I did think that they needed to get either better production or more sensible pay numbers, figures, whatever, to Dez. So what I wanted was for Dallas to essentially offer a pay cut, maybe move the 12.8 down to like 7, and then offer incentives that say, hey, if you produce to this degree on the field, and something borderline 2014 numbers, then you'll earn the money back. You'll basically get your 12.8. Hell, you might get more. It'd still be a blow to Dez's pride, but at least at that point you got him playing angry, and for whatever reason they decided it just wasn't worth it at all anymore. Or maybe it was a bluff. Maybe the pay cut offer that they said throughout the media was never going to be offered, and they just assumed Dez would never take it. And then when he was willing to take it, they basically said, oh yeah, no, that's not on the table. I don't know, but to me, the greatest signifier that Dez was going to be gone, not just Stephen Jones' numerous comments at the start of the offseason talking about Dez being a distraction and that they're going to have to come to the table and talk about a pay cut. To me, it was Dallas willingly going out and trying everything it could to land Sammy Watkins. Now, Sammy Watkins, he's, when healthy, a very good receiver, but he doesn't have near the skins on the wall that Dez has, and he's got his own, as I mentioned, injury history as well. And Dallas was willing to give him $16 million, man. Now, that strikes people as strange because Dez was 12.8 against the cap, and they were going to go give someone 16. So what does that tell you? To me, it signifies that, not that Dallas thought Sammy could be Dez, but that they thought he could be Dez 2016. That's what they want. This tells me that they want Zeke to run the ball into the ground. They're going to get behind that offensive line this next year. That is going to be their identity, and they want possession receivers, not necessarily star receivers. They want a guy who can give them, like I said, Dez 2016 numbers, where you have something like 838 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. That's what they want. And how many receivers have they looked at in their 30 visits for the draft? Let me just list off what I can. Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Deshaun Hamilton, DJ Chark. I don't know if they've met with, I'm going to butcher this name, Equinemius St. Brown from Notre Dame. I don't know if they've met with him yet. But that's 7 guys right there in 30 visits. So receiver has clearly been high on their list, and they already had a logjam at receiver. I've detailed that before. They had 7 guys before the Dez cut, so now 6. But they were talking about adding another guy and making it clear they were going to add another guy. Dallas always drafts from that list of 30 visits. Almost always. Sometimes they don't. They decided, in the case of Mo Claiborne, to move up and get him. He never came in for a visit, I don't think. But most of the time, they don't make it a secret what their thinking is. So I think what Dallas is going to do now, the draft is in Dallas, don't forget. I mean, the draft is in Dallas in 2 weeks, basically. And Cowboys have lost a lot of love from their fan base. And I think they're going to have to respond to that I think they're essentially going to have to respond to that by doing a blockbuster move. So here's what I think. This is my new mock draft. Now, I could be totally wrong. This is just my gut. Dallas is going to take Will Hernandez in the first round. It's a guard, but it's a mauler of a guard. And with Will Hernandez, the offensive line, which I would say was probably only top 10 last year, not the best like it had been the year before, the offensive line is going to go back to being straight world beaters. The juggernaut offensive line, and it will be for years to come. Now they still got to figure out the Tyron situation, but for now, let's just look in the scope of the immediate future. So they're going to get Will Hernandez. They're then going to trade their second round pick and maybe even another pick. Dallas's management might not be savvy enough to pull off an Earl Thomas trade that doesn't require more than a second round pick. They will probably overpay because they're desperate to appease the fan base, and he will make this young defense loads better. If you get Earl Thomas on this defense becomes top 5. You know, they were top 8 last year, but they didn't create a lot of turnovers. They will be top 5, maybe top 3, maybe better. I'm telling you, Earl Thomas will fix a lot of stuff, and he will appease a fair portion of the fan base. Now here's the thing too. People got mad when Mickey Spagnola tweeted out the salary cap related ramifications of moving on from Dez. He cited that it opens up about $8.5 million because this is how much was dead money, this was how much was guaranteed, but you also have a signing bonus, blah, 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 blah. $8.5 million was opened up by moving on from Dez. Dallas, now, it wasn't the only way to create that cap room to go get Earl Thomas. And I'm not saying it was the right way. I'm saying it was a way, and it was the way that they chose. So now you have more money, because if you acquire Earl Thomas, you already know you got to sign him to an extension, and you know on top of that he wants to be paid as like the highest paid safety in the league. Basically, he would have to overtake Kansas City's Eric Berry. So to do that, you're looking at probably $10–11 million a year. You just opened up $8.5 million immediately for him. It helps you in that regard. I think Dallas will give up a second, maybe a second and a fourth or a fifth, and they'll go get Earl Thomas. And then I think at that point, Dallas is going to use another trade, trading up into the second round again. Well, not again. They already gave up one second round pick. I think they then trade up back into the second round, and they draft one of these receivers that they really like. And I think it's going to be, I think Big Game James of Silver and Blue Nation called it. He's been hot on this guy for a while. And even as the guy's stock has risen from like a third or fourth round pick to a second, he's still continued to stay red hot on him. DJ Chark out of LSU. He's 6'3", runs like 4.4, I think. I don't want to over-embellish his speed, but he's got good speed, great leaping ability, strong hands. I think he could be, I'm not saying he's going to be Dez Bryant, but he can give you the jump ball factor, perhaps, or at least a comparable degree of jump ball factor that Dez Bryant gave you. So let's evaluate just those first 3 moves, right? Dallas has 10 picks. Yes, you're forsaking the back half of the draft probably because you're giving up, you know, probably 3 of those picks just to acquire 2 guys. But you're taking your strength of your offensive line, and you're making it a straight juggernaut, which it stopped being last year. You are then taking your young defense and you're giving it a ball hawk, a sideline-to-sideline beast, and a leader, a dog, in Earl Thomas. You're then going out and getting a receiver who, no, for his first year, maybe 2, he's not going to make you forget about Dez Bryant. He's just not. But in time, he could fill a similar role. I'm not saying he's 2014 or 13 or whatever Dez. I'm just saying he can give you a similar role in the offense. Alshon Jeffrey for the Eagles last year, he gave him the jump ball factor, but he wasn't Dez. No one ever argued Alshon Jeffrey was like Dez at his best. I think Chark could give you a similar tool, you know, similar aspect to your offense. And it's an important thing to have. So I think that's what they do there. I don't know what the fallout is beyond that. At some point they have to address linebacker. But I think they've kind of backed themselves into a corner, which is why I ultimately wanted them to give one more year to Dez. That and just obvious emotional attachment. But, you know, they didn't. So here we are. I'm not going to ramble all day, guys. I've already done a longer video, and as I said, I'm not editing this down. I'm just remaining unfiltered because I feel like that's kind of how the fan base feels right now. So I think that's going to wrap up everything for this video. But tell you what, let me know what you're thinking. You know, let me know what you feel, your thoughts on Dez. You know, did Dallas make a terrible mistake that's going to haunt them for years? You know, is Dez going to go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl? Or just tell you what, show some love to Dez in the comments. Tell me like your favorite Dez moment or play or whatever. Vent your hate, show Dez love, whatever. Just let me know what you're thinking. In the comments below, hit me up. Let me know what you're thinking. And yeah, we'll see, guys. It's a tough time right now being a Cowboy fan. We're just gonna have to trust that they have some idea of what they're doing, and if they follow kind of the blueprint I laid out for the draft, then it's hard and it's painful to do, but if there's a vision and it's something that can really help the team, then maybe in the long run it's not horrible. But I don't know. That's the emotional aspect I was talking about. But that's all my time, guys. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to read my article on Dez Bryant and his legacy in Dallas, I'll put a link to that in the description below as well. And until next time, guys, I've been Darreck Kirby, aka DDP from the DallasProspect.com. Until next time, salute.